It's okay to not be okay. We're just passing through. It was at that moment where our lives changed forever. Sometimes I'm not okay. And I was afraid. I was so afraid. Hey guys, so today's vlog is going to be a bit different from my normal vlogs. Um, Today is a day to be honest, and today is a day to be vulnerable. Um, I'm going to speak with you guys about the most hardest time of my life and the things that I have been dealing with over the past years. So, all I ask from you guys is just please be respectful and, you know, yeah, just please be respectful. I'd like to first start off by saying that I was actually a very lucky child to have both my mother and my father in my life, all my life. Most of my friends grew up in single parent households, some of my family members as well. So I feel that I was very lucky and blessed to have both my mother and my father in my life. It was the greatest thing. And growing up, I didn't have any worries at all. No worries as a child. I lived a great childhood. My mother and father made sure I received the best education. Back then, when I was growing up, Catholic schools was the thing. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten till 8th grade, and then I went to Catholic school from 9th grade to 12th grade. And my father have always been the head of the household, so he always took care of home. My mother was a housewife, so she took care of home as well. She made sure the cleaning was done, the cooking was done, the clothes was washed, and she was that housewife. She made sure the home was right, and my father made sure he brought the money home to the family. And my mother and my father, they did everything for me, everything. They were always there for me. I remember Christmases, they used to ask me to make a list, and I would make a huge list. Like, it could be like 1 or 2 pages of all these things that I didn't even need. And they always made sure they got me every single thing on that list. Oh, yeah, I was spoiled. I was definitely spoiled. I'll admit it. I was spoiled, and I loved it. I loved it. Yes, my life growing up was just truly, truly amazing. My parents always made sure we took family trips every summer. Our family trip was always to Florida every year. That's why I fell in love with Florida. I mean, we always had family in Florida. My father was born and raised in West Palm Beach, Florida. We do have family here in Florida, but every year my father took us to Disney World. Every year. It was a tradition. We loved Disney World. It was our happy place, our happy times together as a family. And every year when we went, they always took someone different with us. If it wasn't a cousin, they took one of my nieces or my nephew. God rest his soul. And we always had a time together. Always. There was always somebody there to keep me company when we were taking our family trips. And when I tell you we did this every year. Okay. We went other places as well, but Florida was like our main hot spot. But we used to go to like Virginia, to King's Dominion, Busch Gardens. We used to go to south of the border all the time. Right now, south of the border is just not the same anymore, like how it used to be back in the day. It used to be really, really fun, and it used to be like one of the main spots people used to, stop at during their road trips. So yeah, there's been other places we have traveled, but Florida was always our main hotspot. I remember when I had my first daughter, I started the process all over again, and I began bringing my daughters every year as well. So it was always a tradition for us to take our Florida family vacations. Hence why I always fell in love with Florida. Um, and just to go a little more into that, um, as you know, I moved to the state of Florida about a year ago. It's been about a year and a half now. And the reason why I moved to Florida is because this was always our happy place. And I just wanted to come back to a place where we all was happy together. I wanted to, for some reason, anytime when I visited the state of Florida, it always felt like I was like closer to them in a way because we always had a good time here. And I just wanted to be in a place where we all was always happy together. I wanted to talk to you guys today and talk to you about the day I lost my parents. Now, everyone have their own preferences when it comes to grief and speaking about family members who are no longer with us and everything like that. But me, I find it easy. I would say I find it easier for me to talk about it. Um, and there's no right or wrong way to deal with grief. I've always been one to be very vocal about how I was feeling when it came to, my parents, or how I was feeling about, missing them, things like that, or just thinking of memories. I always love sharing it with people. And let me just state this. Um, if a person feel comfortable talking about their time with their family, their time with their deceased loved ones, and if they feel vocal enough to speak it to someone else, nobody have anything to do with whether you should be opinionated about who I should talk to when it comes to speaking of memories of my parents. You know, no one have anything to do with that. If I feel like speaking about memories of my parents, I will speak about memories of my parents because that's what makes me feel good. Can no one tell anyone, you know, how to grieve? I can also say that it does not get better. I'm being honest. It does not get better. It just get a little easier to deal with it, and to live with it, and live with the change of not of them not being around anymore. But it doesn't get better. You just learn how to live with your new reality. The thing that really helped me is just thinking about how I had a conversation with my mother a long time ago. Well, it wasn't like very long ago, but I would say maybe about a couple of years before she actually passed. And we were talking about something. And I remember my mother's words. And she said that she want us to just live our life and be happy. Just live our life. I was asking her for some serious advice at the time. It was something I was going through. And she told me, she was like, Bren, it's your life. You the one that have to, live with, this decision that you're making, so, you just have to make sure you're happy. And I'll never forget that, so that's pretty much what I keep close at heart as well. I always remember that conversation and know that, my parents just wanted us to be happy. They don't want us sad or, they don't want anything holding us back for what it is we really want to do. They want us to just do it and be happy, live life and be happy. And so, that's what we're trying to do. With that being said, if I feel like sharing a moment with someone who I know can relate to what I may be going through, I'm going to share that moment. And nobody have any business saying anything about what I should or should not be doing. So remember, growing up, aside from the family vacations, I remember when my father used to come home from work, my mother would always have a meal prepared. And I've said before, my mother was an amazing cook. She could throw down in the kitchen. No matter what she was cooking, it was always amazing. She used to cook so good. I remember my brother's friends used to come to the house and see them. And they always made sure they came to our house like around 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening when they knew my mother was cooking, because they knew they wanted some food. And my mother, one thing about her, um, even if we weren't expecting company, everybody had a plate. And when my mother made plates, that plate was always like stacked with food like that. You know, she always fed anyone who came to our house, and everybody always loved eating her food. But I can remember, just a normal day coming home from school, doing homework, watching Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, reading Rainbow and all that good stuff, and just waiting for my father to come home. And at this time, we was living in Montgomery Projects, and I used to love to hear that key go into that door, and my father keys start jingling when he's opening the door. I used to get a little chill up my spine because I knew Daddy was home. So my father would come in the house, and I can remember him coming in, and he'll stop. And in our house, we had like a long hallway that led like to our bedrooms. Like our living room was like on one end, and then the bedrooms was like down the hall. And I could be like in one of the bedrooms looking at TV. Once I hear those keys start jingling in that door, I'll run out and I'll wait at the end of the hall. And my father will walk in the house, and then once he locked the door and everything, he'll stop, and he'll like bend down, and then he'll hold his arms out like that, and he'll be like, "Hello, honey." And then I'll be at the other end of the hall, and I'll be like, "Hello, Daddy." And then and then I'll run to him, and he'll pick me up and he'll carry me through the house. And I did that for years until I guess until I just got too big to be picked up. But I did it for years, and that was just a little tradition. It was cute. It was cute, something that we did every day. Those are just some precious childhood memories. And I can remember going to church, with my family. My father used to drive the church van. We all sung in the choir, and we all enjoyed going to church together. My father used to sing, like sing, when he was growing up with his family, with his brothers, my uncles, and everything like that. And he was a good singer. And I can remember days when my father would be in his feelings, and he'll start singing to my mother in the house. And one of the songs that he used to always sing to her is "Just to Be Close to You, Girl." Um, yeah, he used to sing "Just to Be Close to You, Girl" all the time, Lionel Richie. And I used to love hearing him sing to my mother. And anytime when he would start singing to her, she used to love it. She used to love it. And she used to just sit down, and she'll blush, and she'll look at him. She'll look at him like that, and then she'd just start smiling. My mother used to have the biggest smile. She used to be like, she used to have the biggest smile on her face when my father would start singing to her. We had such great family memories. Our holidays together was always amazing. Christmas mornings, and I told you guys, just toys everywhere. My mother and my father, that at the time they used to buy gifts for everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone had a gift in our family. All immediate family had a gift. So, it's times like this when it's hard, when those birthdays come around and those holidays come around. It's extremely hard because it's like all you could think about is just those memories. But I try and keep the positive memories close so that helps offset the sadness, if that makes sense. So, but if I had to be honest, it's very hard. Until this day, I will still cry and shed tears on their birthdays, or maybe on holidays as well. My mother was such a funny lady. Like, she was an actual nut. Just like my aunts. Like, my family, I come from a very funny family, guys. And my mother, she definitely had a sense of humor. And she used to just say the most off the wall things at times. We used to always make each other laugh. I think that's where I get my silliness from at times. Now I wouldn't call myself being funny. Sometimes I can be funny depending on what I say, I guess. But I get my sense of humor from my mother as well. My father was funny too as well, but my mother was the nut. And I can remember just talking to my mother every day, and we used to cut up. I remember just watching our favorite movies together. My mother used to love the movie The Five Heartbeats and The Temptations. She used to love those two movies. She used to like the karate movies from back in the day when they were sitting up watching Bruce Lee. You know, she used to love those movies. And I can remember times when I was younger, and especially on days when I didn't have school, my mother used to surprise me, and she used to take me to the movies, you know, and going to the movies as a kid, that was the most fun thing ever. I used to love going to the movies with my mother. And I grew up in Jersey City, so we used to have like our shopping district. One of our shopping districts in Jersey City was called Journal Square. We used to walk there. And Journal Square had all the shops, and they had also a movie theater called the State Theater. They also had the Lowe's movie theater, and they had the Stanleys. But the movie theater we went to most of the time was the State movie theater. And I used to always think, like, anytime we went in the shopping district, are we going to the movies today? But I can remember going to Roy Rogers with my mother, going to get some chicken, and we used to bring that chicken right into the State movie theater. And I'm sure we aren't the only ones that was sneaking food up in the movie theater. Yeah, we used to go to the Roy Rogers and get us some food, and my mother used to surprise me and take me right to the movie theater. And those are definitely some precious, precious memories. So I'm going to get right down to it and tell you about the day that I lost my mom and my dad. Please enjoy these precious memories as I share some photos of my parents. I'm just gonna go and get a little more comfortable, and I'm gonna go sit outside while I give you guys this little story time about the loss of my parents. So just give me a minute while I prepare to go out here. Okay guys, so I'm outside right now, so let me just take a seat out here. I'm gonna prop you guys up so I don't have to hold the phone. Okay guys, so in August of 2016, my parents and I, my girls, and Sean, we all took a trip down to Florida. We was on our family trip, and while we were here in Florida on vacation, my mother began to experience a lot of pain in her legs. So she was in a lot of pain, It was very concerning, of course. And we ended up taking her to the hospital. They, I don't need to go into detail, but we took her to the hospital. She was okay for a little while, and before she got, actually, when she got sick, we was actually on our way home. We was on our way back home in, like, I think it was like a couple of days or so. But anyway, she was in a lot of pain. We took her to the hospital. She was in the hospital, I want to say, probably about overnight, if it wasn't even a couple of days. And then we prepared to come home within like the next couple of days or so of her getting out. So we always took road trips. My parents, they didn't fly, so we was always in the car taking road trips back and forth from Jersey to Florida. So we knew it was going to be a long ride home, for her, but there was no other way we could get her home because she wasn't going on a plane or anything like that. So Thankfully, she was good for the ride, but we knew by the time we got back to Jersey, we had to take her straight to the hospital because she was still having a little pain and it was concerning. So we wanted to get her home to find out what was going on. So soon as we got home, we took her to the hospital, and my mother was in the hospital from August until February of 2017. So when she got there, she was in there. I want to say she was in the regular hospital for about maybe a couple of weeks. I want to say before they sent her to rehab. They sent her to rehab, and my mother was actually due to come home the following October. She was due to come home October, and in all honesty, I can't remember the exact date, but it was early October before her birthday. She was due to come home, and we were so excited because we just wanted to have her home. She was excited. She was feeling better. She was doing better, and we was just excited. Especially my father. He was excited to get her home because he was home by himself, while she was in the hospital all that time. So, however, it was about 2 days before she was about to come home. We received a call from the hospital, and on the same day, I had spoke to my mother early that morning. I had called her just to check in to see how she was feeling because her she had asthma and she was having trouble breathing here and there. So I had called to check on her that same morning just to see how she was doing. She picked up. She was like, "I'm doing okay. I'm doing good. This and that." She sounded good, so it made me feel good that she sounded good. So that same day, I was on my way to go and get my father, and my girls was with me as well. We was on our way to the rehab to go visit my mother, and I was driving and I saw a missed call on my phone. It was the rehab calling me. So of course, I got scared, because I knew the extent. I knew my mother would call me from. She had a cell phone at that time, so if it was my mother calling me, I knew she'll be calling from the cell phone, not from the facility where she was at. But that kind of like scared me. So by the time we got to the rehab, we saw one of the nurses in the hallway, and she told us that my mother was in distress. She was having trouble breathing. So they had to call the ambulance to come and get her. She was incoherent when we got there, so the ambulance came, and they transported her to the hospital. But during transport, my mother had coded in the ambulance. So they brought her back. We got to the emergency room, and while in the emergency room, she had coded again, and they brought her back. But when they brought her back, she was not. It was like she was there, but she wasn't there. So after that, it was hard. It was tough. It was a long haul. My mother, her situation didn't make a change or turn around at all for the good. She was like in a vegetative state for months. Um, it was very hard during that time because, for one, my mother, she did have a lot of things going on. And my mother, I always looked at her as like a superwoman because of all the things that she had going on medically, she always came through. My mother always came through every time. My mother, she went through two open heart surgeries. Actually, she had two open heart surgeries. She had a massive stroke years ago when I was in high school when she had the massive stroke. She went through brain surgery, and a number of different other things have happened over the years with my mother, and she always bounced right back, just like that. And it was nobody but God that was on her side. So when this happened to her, I was waiting for her to jump right back. We all was waiting for her to jump right back, but it didn't happen that way. So my mother, she was in the hospital from October until February 13th of 2017. And it was on that day when we received the call that my mother had passed away. I had a feeling that, you know, it was going to happen soon, because 2 days prior to her passing, we was visiting her, myself and my father, we was visiting her, me and my father, and my mother, throughout all that time, you know, she was on a trach. She had the respirator. She wasn't really breathing 100% on her own, you know. So it was a number of different things going on. Um, and I remember visiting her, and the alarm kept going off for her machine. She was in distress, and it looked like she was struggling. You know, it was like she was breathing extra heavy, you know. So I knew something was going on. So um, that day, I remember just looking at her. And for one, whenever I visited my mother, I knew when she was there and when she wasn't there. Even though she couldn't communicate, I knew when she knew who I was. And then again, I knew when she really didn't know what was going on. But that day, my mother was there and she knew who I was. And I remember my father had stepped out and he went to the bathroom. And I went over to my mother, and she was just looking at me like she was in so much distress. And I went over there to her, and I remember walking over to her bedside, and she was looking at me, and she gave me this look, and it was it was a look that I would never forget. She looked at me in my eyes, and she was like, she just looked at me, and she did one of these like please, like she like lowered her eyelids, like Bren, please, you know. And she was telling me that she was tired. She was telling me that she was tired. I could see it all in her eyes. Like, she had fought for far too long, you know. And there were times when the doctors had came to us prior to that, trying to talk to us, saying, "Oh, you know, she's not going to get any better. Oh, you know, you should pull the plug, this and that." But we we have faith, and we had faith, and we was just waiting for that miracle, that one miracle, in which that was going to bring my mother back to us. And my father didn't have the strength to pull the plug on my mother. Um, so anyway, that night, I was talking to my mother, and I was holding her hand, and I told her, I was like, "Mommy, I know um, you're in distress, and I know you're tired." And I told her it's okay. I told her it was okay. I told her that I was going to take care of my father and bring him to live with us. And I told her that I was going to make sure he take his medicine. My mother always worried about my father taking his medications. So I assured her that I was going to make sure he take his medications, and I was going to take care of him. I told her it was okay, and that I knew she was tired. I told her it was okay. So after having that conversation with my mother, my father did come back in the room, and you know, of course, I stopped the conversation right then and there, because of course he was on an emotional roller coaster as well, and I didn't want to start, you know, speaking like that around him, because he was already weak, and I didn't want to make him weaker. So 2 days after I had that conversation with my mother, she left us. It was 2 days after that, and she was gone. So I received a call on February the 13th, 2017, from the facility where my mother was, telling me that she had passed away. And that feeling of hearing the nurse tell me that on that phone was, I can't even begin to explain the hurt and the pain and all the emotions I was feeling at one time. I can't even explain it. So when I received the call, I couldn't even like really speak. I was kind of like in shock. I was in shock, but I couldn't really speak. And I had to hang up the phone, and I called back, and the nurses told me that she was gone. And it was in that moment, I knew I was gonna have to tell my father, and I was afraid. I was so afraid to tell my father. So I went downstairs. My father was living with us at the time. I had already brought him to our house to live with us. I wasn't going to have him by himself in the home where they um, were living at the time. And I went downstairs to let him know that she was gone. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And the hurt and the pain that we had to deal with during that time was just beyond repair at that moment. It was just, it's something that I can't even begin to explain. So it was at that moment um, where our lives changed forever. It changed forever. So after losing my mom, I was worried. I was worried, and I want to say I didn't really have much time to really grieve the way I should have because I was so worried about my father. My mother and father had been together for over at that time about 43, 44 years, and they were two peas in a pod. And you know what they say about those who are, you know, close like that. Married couples. Once one passed away, it's not too long. The other is going to, you know, um, leave right behind them. So it was my duty to try and be the strong one, not only for my father but for my girls as well. We were all like super close, like this, like whenever you see my parents, you seen us, and I was there for them, as they got older, when they couldn't really do much for themselves. I was taking them shopping, taking them to the doctors, and cooking for them when I could. Like when my mother stopped cooking, I was cooking for them, and we would go over to the house and clean the house and things like that. So we were all super duper close. So when we lost my mother, it was hard on everybody, and I was worried. I was so worried, about my girls, and I was worried about my father, who was having a hard time. My father was severely depressed, and it wasn't like anything anyone could really do or say to make it better. When things like that happen, you get phone calls of from friends and family calling, asking, are you okay? That's like the worst thing, you know. Well, I wouldn't say it's the worst thing, but of course, no, we're not okay. But we appreciated the concern, and we appreciated the love and care that our family and friends showed us during that time after my mother passed. So anyway, after my mother passed, again, my father was severely down. I would come home from work at times, and when we was living in Jersey, my father, he stayed in the basement of the house where we used to live. It was a finished basement, so he had like his own little apartment down there. He had his own bedroom, living room, kitchen. So it was a nice, cozy spot for him. It was what he wanted. He wanted a nice spot where he could be in private. He didn't want to be amongst everyone else in the house. He wanted his own private space, and that's exactly what he got. And I can remember come home from work, and sometimes I would find my father sitting in the basement. He'll be in the dark, just sitting in a recliner chair, just looking. Um, it was hard for him to eat, and it was just a number of different things. Like, I was just so afraid. It was like to the point where every day before I went to work, I would go downstairs to make sure I would always go downstairs and just call him, Daddy. And I would say good morning just to make sure he responded to me. And it was just a crazy thing because one thing I didn't want is to ever come home from work and see my father unresponsive in the house. I knew my father was sick, not only from the depression, but I knew he was sick and there was things going on, but it was like he was to the point where he just didn't care anymore. And he didn't even want to go to the doctor. There was many times I had to force him to go to the doctor, and it was like he just didn't care because my mother wasn't there. So it was like he didn't want to be here anymore. And we had conversations, and I used to hate it when he used to talk like that, but he did tell me that, he held on as long as he could for myself and for my girls. He wanted to make sure that we were all right. He did a lot for our family. And I know what he did for us, he did it for us, because he just wanted to make sure that we'll be all right before he left. Um, my father had called me one night. It was actually about one something in the morning, and this was in April of 2018, about a year and a couple of months after my mother passed. And he had told me that he was sick. And one thing that my father didn't really do is, like, come out and be verbal about him being sick, because he didn't want anyone worrying about him. He didn't want me worrying about him, and he didn't want the girls worrying about him. But he called me that night, so I knew something was really wrong. So Sean and I went to go check on him, and we got dressed and we took him to the hospital immediately. And that was scary, because I was feeling bad as well, because my father was give me a minute. So that was hard, because my father was in so much pain and discomfort, and I just hated seeing him that way. And we didn't have any answers as to what was happening, what was going on. And I just wanted him to feel okay. So we got him to the hospital, and we was in the hospital. I was there with him until like the next morning. And I was in debate with myself, wondering, should I go to work? Should I not go to work? Should I stay here? And I remember asking him, do you think I should go to work, Daddy? And he was like, it's up to you. He was like, you can do what you want to do. It's up to you. Like, my father was really like, he just wanted me to make my own decision. I was scared. I was scared at what the results was going to be. I was wondering what was happening. We had no answers to our questions at that time. But I did decide to go to work that next morning. It was more so because I wanted the distraction. The feelings that I had inside, I was so scared. And anyway, I went to work the next morning. My sister had went to the hospital that day while I was at work. And I can remember talking to my sister about I want to say 11 o'clock that morning, or maybe it was like something to 12, close to lunchtime. And she was telling me that she was there with him, but she said he wasn't looking too good. So it worried us. And by the time we hung up that day, my sister called me back and told me that my father had been coded and they were working on him. So my heart dropped. I was at work and everything just stopped. I was the only one in the office at that time. And I just got up, I grabbed my keys, I grabbed my purse, I grabbed everything, and I just left. I left immediately. At that time, my job was like about an hour away from the hospital, and I think I probably made it there within like 30 minutes. I had to call, someone on the job, let them know, hey, I'm leaving, you know, and that was like the hardest drive ever. And it was on April 26th when my father passed away. So when my father passed, there was a lot of unanswered questions still. We wasn't exactly sure what happened, but I knew deep down inside my father had a broken heart. He had a broken heart. He was struggling, trying to live without my mother, and he just couldn't do it. He held on as long as he could. And I remember that night, right before my father left us, I was holding his hand and I was looking at him. He was not responsive to me, but he looked at me. And when he looked at me, I knew it was him saying goodbye. And then he just looked up, and I feel like my mother came for him. I feel like my mother came and got him. So on that day, it was hard. It was hard, but I can say, if this even makes sense, when my father passed, it was a little easier for me because I knew he was with my mother again, and I knew that they was at peace together. It was extremely hard. It was somewhat of a surreal feeling, living without my parents, knowing they were gone. But, the moment I felt myself beginning to like feel sad or angry and all those emotions I was feeling at that time, I immediately thought about the good. And I knew that it would be selfish of me to want them back. It would be selfish of me to want them back in this cruel world amongst um, the crime and worries and fears and stress. And I wouldn't want them to have to deal with that. They were at peace, so I wouldn't even want them to have to deal with that again. And they was at peace together. My father was miserable here, and I knew that he was at peace when he saw my mother again. So um, that is the condensed story of the loss of my parents and when I lost them, the timeline and everything like that, without me having to go into full details of everything that happened. But I wanted to just let you guys know how I've been coping with it, and how I'm coping with the feelings that I have when, I have my sad moments, and how I've been coping with grief overall. I wrote a couple of things down because I just didn't want to forget to mention a couple of things. So, one thing about me when I'm coping with grief, I don't want to keep my feelings all bottled up inside. I feel better letting it out. So, as I stated earlier in the video, when I have time to talk about it, I talk about it. If I'm having a conversation with someone who's going through a similar situation like me, I feel comfortable enough talking with them about the time when I went through the same thing that they're going through. Um, it makes me feel good to just talk about my experiences and how, I'm coping with the loss of my parents. Um, Also, another thing that helped me, I try to stay busy. When my father passed, I didn't take many days off from work. I want to say I probably took like a week, but I went right back to work that second week, and that was more so the distraction that I needed at that time, because I didn't want to sit at home, and I didn't want to be sitting up, you know, in my head just thinking all day, every day. I figured it would be better for me to go back to work so that I could have that distraction of not constantly thinking about the loss and crying and, getting all bottled up in my emotions. So it was my choice to go back to work within like a week or so after he passed. But yeah, I tried to be expressive as I could, because I just don't want to keep those feelings inside. I try to do things that used to make us happy. As I stated, I moved out here because Florida was always our happy place, and I'm happier here. Anytime I've always visited Florida in the past, and when it's time to go home, I never wanted to go home because I was always happier here. Like I said, I feel closer to my family here. We was always happier here as a family. Um, and One of my coping mechanisms is, of course, whenever we visit one of our theme parks we used to love going to together at Disney or Universal, we always love doing those things together. And whenever I visit the theme parks, I always think about the happy times we shared. It makes me feel good inside. It makes me feel warm. It makes me feel at peace. So I usually try and do that when I can, as much as I can. It makes me happy inside. Also, another thing I would do is allow myself to feel sad when I need to feel sad. I don't try and like holding the tears. I don't try and hold in the tears. If I feel the need to cry, I'll cry. It's cleansing. And when I allow myself to cry and when I allow myself to grieve, it makes me feel a little better versus me trying to, hold it all inside. I can admit when, everything was fresh, when everything had just happened, like whenever I felt myself breaking down inside and getting ready to cry and have a moment of grief, I used to always go to my bedroom, and I had a big closet, and I would just go in my closet, and that was my safe space for me to cry and allow myself to feel sad. Um, I used to do it away from the family because I never wanted my girls to see me cry because they was already going through their own thing. So I used to grieve in private, and I still do. I still do. That's just me. I choose to do it in private. It's okay to not be okay. Emotional roller coaster. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. I'm up in those moments when I'm remembering all the good times that we've shared. And then again, there are those times when I could just be laying in bed, and I could have this dark cloud over me, and nothing but sadness and grief just overwhelming me. I'm crying, I'm missing them like crazy. um I allow myself to grieve in those moments, as I stated, and I'll also talk to them because I know they're listening. um I try to think about the fact that, another thing I usually try and do, I'm kind of like getting off topic, is I usually watch these shows about people who had near death experiences and the feeling that they had when they went crossed over to the other side. And everyone is at peace, and everyone says they never want to come back and this and that. So I love the fact that my parents are at peace and they don't have any more worries and that they're together. So when I feel that sense of sadness and grief is overwhelming me, I just try to think about the positive aspect of it, and it makes me feel okay. It helps me to feel okay just thinking about how happy they are on the other side. And just knowing, I look at it like this. I always tell everybody, life is but a dream. Just like the nursery rhyme. Life is but a dream, and we're just passing through. We're just passing through until it's time for us to live our everlasting life. And we're going to meet again. We're going to meet again, and we'll be together again. And that will be for eternity. So when I'm sad, I think about that as well. It's not an ending, although, everyone's going to die one day. Um, Once we're gone from this world, once it's time for me to meet my parents again, I know it's going to be forever. So I try to think about that as well. Also, sometimes cope with my grief by writing in my journal. I would sometimes write a letter to my parents, and I would talk to them about things that I would have talked to them about if they were here with me, or if I would have just picked up the phone to call them. I always thank my parents for everything they have done for me and our family. Um, and when I write the letter to them, it gives me a safe space because I know that they're listening, and it gives me a feeling of comfort as well. Um, just knowing that, although I can't see them, I know that they're there in spirit and that they're never gonna leave us. They're always there, watching over us and protecting us. So, guys, I'm gonna close this video out right now, and just let you guys know that if you're coping with grief from the loss of a loved one, a parent, a sibling, anyone who's close at heart, could be a dear friend, grandma or grandpa, try to hold on to all the good memories and try to think of all the good memories you shared, because when you do that, it allows you to get through the process a little bit. You don't want to keep your feelings all bottled up inside, and you want to allow yourself to have your moments, but you want to, aside from having those sad moments, you want to have more happy moments than sad moments. That's the main thing you will want to do, have more happier moments than sad moments. And again, that's why we're here. That's why we're here, because I wanted to be happy. That's the only reason why we're here. We wanted to be happy. And that's what we did. We made this big move. It was a huge sacrifice. It was scary. But we did it. I'm proud that we did it. So guys, so yeah, just know that your loved ones are listening. They're always listening. Talk to them. Talk to them. And just know that they're there with you through every milestone. My girls just graduated, and I know my mother and my father was looking down, smiling upon them as they graduated. Um, if you didn't look at my one of my previous videos, I did post the graduation of my daughter. One of my daughters graduated from college, and the other, my youngest daughter, she graduated from high school, and my oldest daughter, she graduated as well. She's a licensed esthetician. So, but when she graduated, you know, that wasn't posted. You know, my oldest daughter, she's very, shy and private. So she's not in the camera or on video much at all. And that's just her preference. So I'm not going to force her. But, all of my girls, I'm very proud of them. And I know that my parents are proud of them as well. So I might have been all over the place in this video. There's a whole lot of mixed feelings I have, when talking about this. But I wanted to just, I wanted to be honest and just speak with you guys to let you know that, you know, sometimes I'm not okay. Um, Ever since this happened, I've had trouble sleeping at night. Ever since my mom passed, and I suffer from severe insomnia, and I've developed a sense of anxiety as well. There are at times I am very depressed, um, but I'm getting through it. I'm getting through it. So like I said, I allow myself to grieve when I need to. I think of more happier moments, and sometimes when I can, we'll go out. We'll go out. We'll go have fun because that we always used to have fun as a family, and that's what we loved and enjoyed doing. So I would try to keep myself occupied, and we all would go out, whether it's just me and my girls, or if I'm going out alone, even if it's just shopping. We'll go out. And I thank God for Sean because when all this happened, he was there um, every step of the way, every step of the way. And he helped keep me grounded. He helped keep me focused. He helped, help me through the process. And I will forever be grateful for him. Yeah, so I'm going to go for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I was able to help someone else out there who may be going through the same thing. And I hope you all take care, be blessed, and stay safe. And please keep me and my family in your prayers. Bye, guys.